Everyone has the same 5 core areas of their life that ultimately determine how happy they'll be. Unfortunately, most of us have developed failure habits in each, and it's Will Moore's mission to help replace those with success habits to maximize momentum. After exiting his business for a combined 9-figure sum, Will learned it's not just about becoming an entrepreneur of your career, but an entrepreneur of the most important business you'll ever run, your life. And to crush it in your life requires firing on all cylinders in your 5 cores by continually taking action, building habits, and maintaining balance in each. Hello, and welcome to the 5 Core Life Podcast with Will Moore, founder of More Momentum. If you're not already, please make sure to follow and subscribe to the 5 Core Life Podcast to get notified when episodes air every week. On today's episode of the 5 Core Life, Will Moore sits down with Rebecca Zung, negotiation attorney and best-selling author. Today's episode is titled How to Negotiate with a Narcissist. Rebecca dives deep into the definition of what a narcissist is, how to identify a narcissist, and what to do if you do business or in a personal relationship with a narcissist. And she gives one free tip to ethically manipulate the manipulator. Are you ready to fire on all cylinders? If so, let's go.
What's up, Rebecca?
How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Sorry about being a few minutes late here.
No worries at all.
You know, life, it gets in the way. My wife, you know what? I should put this on my resolutions this year because I am habitually late. And it's like just not bad enough to like really negatively affect my life, but it's just annoying enough to affect those around me. So you just got part of that world. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put it on my thing. I need to like 10 minutes before I'm gonna do anything, I need to set my alarm as if it's happening right then. That's my thing.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'm totally cool. So I'm just gonna maybe this down. I feel like I'm like, maybe that's a better angle.
So how are you? Tell me how was your New Year? How was your your holiday? We haven't really talked since then.
With COVID, it was different than any other holiday ever. I mean, it was just my husband and me and my daughter, basically. I have one cousin who lives here, and she came over on Christmas Eve, and we made wontons, and that was it. It wasn't like some big group of people like it normally would be. Trying to be safe.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's been the theme for everybody. Yeah, we didn't have nearly as big of the group that we normally have either. Oop.
Yeah. So what did you guys do?
My screen looks like it actually froze.
It did freeze.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, you know what? I was connecting my headset.
Oh.
Okay, better. Okay. Yeah, no, we were good. Just the standard, family, but smaller. And, it's all about the kids. It's right now. I got a 4.5 and a 19-month-old. So it's like the presents and the smiles and the videos. Fun. It is fun. Yeah. It's like reliving that, which is what my whole thing in life. It's like showing people how to get back to that wonder and passion and enthusiasm you had when you were a little kid. Totally. And this really helps to have these two little muses right in front of me, showing me what it was like, and before life starts getting in the way. So my whole thing is, and I know you help people help things get out of the way so that you can focus on that good stuff, get rid of those obstacles. So speaking of that, why don't you tell us? I introduced you a little bit. I know you're a fantastic top attorney. You're a master negotiator. You got a best-selling author. Tell us a little bit about kind of what you're working on now and what you're trying to accomplish.
I help people negotiate with narcissists. Isn't that a crazy thing to be focusing on? But that's what I do. And mostly through my YouTube channel, which actually just went over 100,000 subscribers, which I just really started focusing on in March. So I'm pretty excited about that, just because I'm helping a lot of people, I'm excited that I'm able to help a lot of people. And I have a program called Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist. And SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you, your case, and your position. And as far as I know, I'm the only attorney that is helping people with that. And that's what I do.
I love it. So, I mean, I love when we get, like a niche person, a niche, however, niche, tomato, because it's like, there's so much in the world and you can't do everything. And it's like, to me, I'm always telling people the best way to succeed is, just hone in and get that little niche. And, people will kind of, the people that are in that niche will really grab on because they'll relate. And then that'll help spread it out to the rest. Cause like here now we are talking and I'm, that's not something that I'm particularly focusing on, but it's a really fascinating subject. And I love to bring new, interesting ideas to our viewers. So thank you for doing that.
Oh yeah, well, and like what you said, I mean, they say there's niches and riches, or niche down to blow up, or broad equals broke. I've heard all sorts of different little like quips like that, but I think it's true. I've been practicing as a lawyer for a long time. I've been honing my skills as a negotiator, and I wrote a book on negotiation last year. But it wasn't until I really focused my attention on using my skills to help people negotiate with toxic or difficult personalities that I really started to see a massive, huge amount of people who needed what I'm teaching. So
yeah, I mean, so let's get right into that. I mean, let's dive into what you've learned about these types of people, and how you're helping people negotiate with these types. Because I mean, narcissist, it's like, well, first of all, can you define narcissist so everybody understands exactly?
Yeah, that's a good question. I love that question because some people think like anybody who says anything nice about themselves, they must be a narcissist. Right. But that's definitely not the case. Or anybody who has any amount of confidence in themselves, they must be a narcissist.
Right.
No. It's a combination actually of a person who has no inner sense of value. They have to derive all of their sense of value from the external in the form of what we call narcissistic supply, and coupled with, and a lot of people forget this and piece, which is that they have no sense of care, sympathy, compassion, empathy for anyone else. It's actually what I call like the scarcity mentality to the extreme. Like if I give anything to anybody else, then that means for some reason I don't have or won't have. And that's what it is.
So what, that first part you said, did you say no sense of self?
No sense of self. So they're actually very, very fragile inside, but they navigate and negotiate the world by getting their sense of value through, all sorts of things. And it could be, and we call it narcissistic supply, which could be, money, prestige, getting adulation from people, treating people, but the other side is treating people poorly, devaluing them, treating them badly, manipulating people, gaslighting people. That's the other side of how they get narcissistic supply. Controlling people. It's just, they're actually very sad people in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean, the empaths that are out there listening, no, you can't love them back to health. No, you can't fix them. They would have to want to be fixed themselves, which most of them would never step foot inside a therapist's office unless they thought that they could manipulate the situation in some way. So, they have to derive all of their value from the external, and so that's what happens.
God, I'm really glad I asked that question, because that was I do think people have a general idea of narcissism, but I think it's overused in our society. Like you're saying, like, oh, that guy takes pictures of himself and selfies, or she's a narcissist, and who knows, maybe they are, but in general, it's much more of like it's almost like a sociopathic type of thing, right? Or is it maybe not the right word?
Sociopath is even a little bit more, I mean, I view it kind of more on a continuum, you know? Like the beginning of the continuum is all human beings. We all, as human beings, want to feel seen, heard, and know that we matter. That's just part of the human experience. And there's certainly nothing wrong with wanting to feel seen, heard, acknowledged. But, you know, there's a healthy balance with most people of wanting to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged, and also wanting to care about others and deeply feeling a sense of empathy and compassion when people are in pain or wanting to help people. That there's a healthy balance there. As you get further down the continuum, there are people who are, you know, maybe have some narcissistic traits, but they are also have some sense of care or compassion for others. And then you get down to, you know, full-on narcissism, which is what I just described. To me, sociopathy, and I'm not a psychologist, but I've studied a lot of this stuff just to learn about how to negotiate with them. The sociopathy piece of it is where they really have no conscience. Like destroying somebody's life is not too far. You know, and I've seen it in my practice where somebody will accuse, you know, a father of heinous things like, you know, doing sexual things or molesting their daughter or something like that when it's completely false. You know, because they just want to bring them down or they want them to suffer in some way. And no care at all about that it might destroy the person's life. To me, that's the overlay of sociopathy. And to me, that's really more like what you become when you get into the world of a malignant narcissist. The malignant narcissist is really a narcissist with the overlay of being a sociopath as well. Really, really charming people.
Yeah, that sounds like the kind of guy I want to have at my Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I want to address some of these questions because they're kind of tie into some of the ones I was going to have. So let's see. Somebody asked about two things I want to address. Let's see. It was about politics. I can't find it, but essentially, how does this all tie into politics? Which I think is very interesting. I want to talk about that.
I don't know if I should even go there, especially after yesterday.
Well, so let me just tell you something, and you can make a decision. I'm not here to force anybody to do anything, but let me say something. I watched. Are you familiar with Tay Tay, Miss Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift?
Familiar with her? Not. Do you know her? Do you know who she is?
Of the country music singer?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So this is where I'm sorry. You're like, what is he talking about? Let me just stick with me here, people, and Rebecca. I saw her documentary not too long ago, and I don't know. Have you watched it, by the way?
Her documentary? No.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's really good. Like, so okay. I've always liked her music. I'm not even a closet Tay Tay fan. I'm like, I love me some Tay Tay. Ain't too proud to admit it. And in her documentary, you got to know her and you saw her character. And, there's a lot of celebrities and stars out there, and, you never really know behind closed doors. And, who knows? Maybe some of it wasn't fully, the real her. But I think we got to see a pretty good who she is. And one of the things she did that just blew my mind, and I've made it my number one goal, I've got to interview her this year because she impressed me so much with how she did it, improved the type of person she is she decided to take a stand in politics. And she basically said, look, I have all this power, and I've stayed away from the political arena for so long because I was so worried that it was going to, damage. I mean, half the country right now sees things not only differently than the other half, as proven by last night, but, it's more of a, it's not even like, oh, I respect your opinion. I mean, a lot of it is like, I hate you because you think this, right? And so she was afraid, understandably, to alienate some of her followers and lose her base. But she said, you know what? This is in my heart, and I know what's right, and I have to speak up. And, if I lose some people along the way, so be it. But, you know, this is what's in my heart. And she basically laid out her political views and has ever since has doing it. And her managers, there's this one scene where everybody's like around her and telling her, look, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you need to be careful with this. And she just went for it and she did it. Right. And that's that inspired me to now talk about politics and my views, because I kind of did the same thing. I sort of shied away from it and I didn't like talking about it because I was like, you know, I could have people here that are on the, but you know what? I got to be true to myself. And so I will just give my take on politics and narcissism. I think that the person that's about to fortunately exit the White House is 1,000,000% what you were just describing. Go ahead.
I mean, I can say without saying, you know, anything about whether I think he should be president or not. And for me, the reason why I shy away from getting into it on my social media platforms is because I know that there are a lot of people who are hurting and in pain, and they need to have real step-by-step guidance on how to escape these relationships and shift the dynamic and shift the conversation. And I feel like if I start to go, well, I'm for this person or I'm against this person, that the people who need help might go, well, because you're for this person, I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say any further. And so because I am in that realm, but I mean, I can definitely say that he certainly exhibits the traits of a narcissist. I did interview Dr. Bandy Lee, who wrote the book, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. I did tell her during the interview I didn't want to talk about politics, but she certainly described characteristics, and she's a psychiatrist, that he seems to exhibit that seem to be that of a narcissist, certainly.
Okay, so you're not.
You know, there's probably many other politicians out there that have narcissism too.
Well, right. I mean, that's a safer place. And right, as I said, I'm not here to force anybody to go in an uncomfortable land because, you know, right, you're not at the Tay-Tay level yet. I'm joking. Because what you just said is exactly what she was like, well, I don't want people to look at my music differently. But then she just decided, but it doesn't mean that you have to or I have to. But I just decided for me, I'm like, you know what? Like, enough's enough. You know, but it's not like I go on and just bash people if it's relative and it comes up. And so as you're describing, okay, let me just, no sense of self, no empathy for others. If they have to give something up to somebody, like giving back, the whole like meaning of life to me, they feel like that means somebody's taking something from them, right? I mean, all those things just scream Donald Trump to me. So I appreciate your take on that. Clearly, you don't want to go too far into that. I understand. But yeah, I mean, the safer places, politics in general, I do think that there's, you know, maybe even entertainment, you know, we can expand that to, you know, there's a certain bit of, I think you have to have maybe traits of narcissism. And I would imagine there's a huge spectrum of narcissism.
I mean, I would actually kind of flip that and just say, I think people who are narcissists tend to be attracted to professions and positions that will get them the adulation and attention that they crave.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that it could be entertainment, it could be politicians, it could be any kind of a position of power or respect. You know, actually, a lot of covert narcissists are attracted to, you know, places of, you know, being like religious ministers or doctors, even psychologists. I mean, there are a lot of narcissistic psychologists out there for sure. And, you know, so they're attracted to positions where they will be able to control the narrative. And, you know, so, I mean, people accuse me of being a narcissist, you know, 99% of the people who follow me tell me every day how much I've saved their lives and whatever. But, you know, I'll have one or two people who will say, oh, you know, you must be a narcissist because you're out there talking about it and you're on YouTube and whatever. And they don't know my life and my personal, how I feel, my heart, you know, and the fact that I feel like it's like the opposite. The fact that I'm a lawyer out there giving hundreds of hours of free information is like, I think it should be like considered to be the opposite, but you know.
You can't please everybody. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the more you get in the spotlight, I watched the Bee Gees documentary last night. God, speaking of that, apparently I'm a documentary guru.
Yeah.
Or documentary junkie. I am. I love them because I love getting these insights into people's worlds. It's like all you do is you know their music, you know a little bit about them, and it's like then you go, whoa. And yeah, the Bee Gees one, if you're thinking about it, definitely watch it. I want
to see that one too. I'm going to watch the Taylor Swift one too, for sure.
Yeah, mind blowing. But he opened with, it was just interesting kind of to see the perspective and the very opening, his whole, I think the very first sentence even might have been, I need to go back actually because I want to do a post on it and write it down, was essentially, the world is not real. It's what we perceive it to be. And, you know, it just goes through their whole story of how it was ups, it was downs, you know, his three brothers, all are dead at this point. And it was just very interesting to kind of watch how that played out. But sorry, I actually had a point to your earlier point with that, but now that's gone. So now I'm sidetracked.
Yeah, I remember, I'm old enough to remember, I was very young, but when their brother Andy died, I mean, I was like in elementary school or something, but I do remember when he died.
Yep, drug overdose.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the spectrum of narcissism. I mean, how does that work? I mean, is it like basically you're a narcissist or you're not? Or is it like a lot of gray area where it's like, you kind of have a little bit of the traits or you're all in like 100%?
I think it's a spectrum. I do. I think that, you know, some people just have some narcissistic traits and, you know, to me, it's a spectrum. But when you're negotiating with them, I think it really doesn't matter if they're actually a narcissist or they just have traits or they're just difficult or toxic, because when you have to negotiate with them, it is extremely painful and traumatic regardless. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, they could just be, you know, a jackass.
Right.
But when you have to negotiate with them, it's the same kind of thing that you have to do. And somebody is asking about what's covert narcissism, and covert narcissism is, it's more under the radar. So they say that, you know, I guess there's several different kinds of narcissists, but the main ones that I'm aware of are the covert, and then the grandiose, and then the malignant. And the grandiose is more of what I call the garden variety narcissist, the one that everybody is aware of. They're out there, they're bragging, they expect the best table whenever they walk into the restaurant. They're always telling everybody how accomplished they are. They treat people badly, you know, they're more obvious. The covert narcissist is actually, to me, one of the most dangerous types because they're so under the radar. They look normal and they may even look like wonderful people on the outside, but behind the scenes, they're extremely passive aggressive. They're very good at gaslighting, lining up people, which we call flying monkeys, or triangulating, you know, everybody else thinks this, no one else thinks the way you do, isolating you. You know, they have their, whoever their target is, and they're very, very good at passive aggressive types of techniques that, you know, if they get caught, you know, or somebody tries to call them out on their behavior, they've got this plausible deniability. They're able to sort of say, well, that's not true because this, that, and the other thing. they're very, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. So it's really, I've had to deal with a couple of covert narcissists in my own life. One in like an extended family setting and one in like a business setting. And it was, one of the worst experiences I've ever had to deal with, frankly.
Man, God, yeah. And we're getting, this is a really, this proves what a neat topic, not neat, it's the wrong word, but interesting topic. We're getting some cool questions in here. Somebody was asking, and somebody asked earlier kind of similar, so I'll bring this one up. Basically, should you tolerate people who insult you? How do you, to me, maybe a little bit broader, like, how do you handle a narcissist? So let's get into, this negotiating with a narcissist and how to actually, if you're either in a relationship with one, you have a friend that's one, or you're doing business that you have to negotiate with on a business level with, what's your advice?
Well, the first thing you have to do is start creating boundaries. You really do tell them how to treat you in a lot of ways. And what happens with narcissists is that it's like they start off with this love bombing where they're like the perfect person for you, even whether it's business or romantic, it's the same thing, where they're excellent at reading people. They're master manipulators. So they figure out a way to ensconce their way into your world, into your life, and put themselves in a position to be able to control you. And then once they get in that place, and the relationship always happens very quickly, very fast, and then once they're in that position, then they start devaluing you. And it may be overt and it may not be, but it could be just little things like, oh, I saw that you, wrote this thing or cleaned that thing or whatever. It wasn't exactly right, so I fixed it for you or whatever. Just like a little dig kind of a thing, or are you sure you want to eat that? You are gaining some weight, or, just like little, things barbs start happening. They might start like not responding to texts right away as another like little way to sort of start, it's like a conditioning almost, And so the first thing you really have to start to do is start creating boundaries and start saying, listen, I'm not going to accept that you treat me this way. That's not okay. Things like that. So I would start with that. Go no contact if you can. But the problem is that if you need to negotiate with them, it's probably meaning that you can't completely go no contact with them. But start creating boundaries. And the way I say to do that is, there's a number of different ways. But one of the ways is to pick a mode of communication that will be eventually usable in court, because they do lie a lot and they also try to accuse you of things. And I say it's sort of like, everything you say can and will be used against you. So, email is really the best mode of communication. If you have children together, then using some sort of a co-parenting app is also really good. A lot of people ask about text messages. Sometimes that can be a little bit kind of clunky or difficult as far as potential trial exhibits. I'm just saying, what is your best mode of communication? And, there are some apps out there that help with downloading text messages, but, they don't always last forever and things like that. So ideally, using some kind of mode of communication that you can use as a trial exhibit down the road. Having some sort of boundaries around how a conversation is going to go, maybe having an agenda, maybe setting a time limit, something like that. And then, in my program, my SLAY program, I actually have 50 key phrases to disarm a narcissist. I also have a video on my YouTube channel. I invite people to come check out my YouTube channel and subscribe there. But I have a video on phrases to disarm a narcissist. But just not.
Can you give us maybe just, obviously you don't want to give the ship away for free, but can you give us one or two of those?
Sure. So basically you want to never engage in the emotion of it, because they're really, really good at trying to, dig at you, get you going, incite you. So, they'll say things that will inflame you. So, learning how to almost have a plastic bubble or a glass bubble around yourself where you just don't allow that to penetrate into you. And you just say, well, I can see that you're upset, so we can talk about this at a time when you have calmed down. Or, yes, I know that that's what you think. And, I'm not going to try to change that that's what you think. In other words, when they say, you're a deadbeat dad, or you're a crappy mom, or you're terrible in business, or you're awful with money, or, things like that. Anytime they trigger you, you're giving them narcissistic supply. You're giving them what they want. That's what they are trying to do. And now you're in it with them. And so staying out of that fray is really a great way to help you start putting up boundaries. And honestly, the way I look at it is they're like toddlers in adult bodies. And so you kind of have to look at them as if you were looking at a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. You wouldn't get down on the floor and start screaming and yelling with the toddler. You just watch them and you kind of smile and you're like, okay, let me know when you're done. And that's kind of what you have to do with narcissists as well.
That's really, thank you for sharing that. I was just taking notes. That's really interesting. And by the way, I always take notes with my guests because there's always juicy nuggets. And if I put them in my book that I'm working on, I will ask you for a quote if it's okay. So don't worry about that. But I mean, just the whole, that whole, they want to just go like this and they want to manipulate the situation and get what they can out of it. And, and it was interesting how you said, at first they're the knight on the knight on the white, coming in on the white horse, or they're the perfect gal who, just, they know how to read people and manipulate them and get them to fall in love with them and then get to where they want to be. And then once they're there, then they start really manipulating the situation. And one of those tactics is to make people feel bad about themselves and to just kind of give these slight digs. And it's great. It's great to kind of bring that into the open, because again, there's a lot of different spectrums, right? So even if maybe some of the things you're talking about, if somebody's in a relationship with somebody or works with somebody or friends or whatever, it's you can still use these types of techniques if they exhibit some of these types of symptoms. Maybe they're not a full blown, but maybe it's well, that person does try to make me feel bad a lot and they do try to knock me down, and they, how do I deal with that? And so you're basically saying, just, you got to have full on emotional control, EQ. You need to be aware that they may do that. Because otherwise, it's really hard, as everybody knows, and I'm sure you would agree, that to control our emotions in the moment if we're just triggered by something. But to become aware. And
that's why I say, try to minimize contact with them as much as you can, because that way you only have to control your emotions for, these little short periods of time. Because, hey, once you're out of their space and you're back in your room or your shower or whatever, scream, cry, yell to your therapist, your best friend, whoever else. But when you are in that interaction, you don't want to give them that satisfaction of losing your mind, because that's exactly what they want you to do.
So, yeah. So, I mean, basically, the theme that I've heard you say multiple times, and I just saw a question. What if how do you handle if you fear being a narcissist, especially if you have adult kids with them? So obviously there's two camps here. There's okay, I've spotted one and and there's the avoidance, like you said, just run at all costs, because you can't change them. You can't, I think you said the words earlier, you can't love them into changing. You can't yet you're not going to be the one to fix them. So, don't waste your energy and time, stay with them. And then there's the other, which you're already in one with them, right? And so let's talk about that. So you're in it with them, and it's an abusive, not a good relationship. But there's factors in there that make it difficult to just, exit the building, so to speak. What's your advice to these types of people?
Well, when you need to create an escape plan. I mean, whether it's a business or a personal relationship, I mean, this is not going to go anywhere good. I mean, I totally respect that there are some people who are in situations where maybe they have young children, maybe financially it's difficult, for whatever reason, they can't get out of the situation at a certain time. That's totally understandable. And so I don't want to make anybody feel bad who isn't in a position or isn't even mentally ready to make that leap. But even to those of you who are in those situations, I really think that it would be best if you start to at least understand the situation that you're in, understand the type of personality type that you're dealing with, and come up with a plan for managing them now, and then also potentially exiting this situation eventually. So creating, in my SLAY program, I talk about strategy is S, developing a strategy. Don't just leave right away, because if you do that, you probably will put yourself in a position where it may be more difficult to get something that you want to get down the road, or, you may end up having to go back to the person, which makes it even worse. So making sure that you are ready, creating a plan. Where are you going to go? If it's a divorce situation, where are you going to go? What are you going to do for money? Who's going to keep the house, at least even during the pendency of the case? Do you need support, child support, spousal support? What about money for attorney's fees? What about where are you going to be when the other person gets served with the papers? Every little detail needs to be planned out. So that needs to be part of the strategy. And then, as far as developing leverage, doing research for your side, their side, coming up with your first offer. And the best leverage, by the way, is always going to be in somewhere around narcissistic supply, because there's a level of supply that is going to mean more to them to keep than the supply that they get from making you miserable. And you have to threaten that other source of supply, and that's going to be how they look. They don't want to look bad in front of judges. They don't want to look bad in front of other lawyers. And so threatening to expose them in some way, I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator, because, you certainly are well within your legal rights to do that sort of thing. A lot of people say, I don't necessarily want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to ask for more than, I'll just take this. And when you say those kinds of things, you're actually putting yourself in a lesser position, a weaker position, because the narcissist is not thinking that way. The narcissist is thinking, I want to destroy you. I want to take you down. I want you to suffer. I want your life to be miserable. And so you're dealing with that on the other side. So in order for you to just get back to a position of being in a reasonable situation, you have to create that leverage.
That's really good. Thank you. That ethically, I wrote that down, manipulating the manipulator. That's an interesting term. And I like that, because it's sort of like, right, there's always that side of people that's, well, I don't want to be bad, or but if you're in like a lose-lose scenario, and if you need to get out, Like, and that person, as you said, these narcissists are master manipulators. And if they don't want you to get out, they are going to probably be a lot better at it than you, at keeping you into their little bubble. So if you want to get away from them and get out, you know, find out their Achilles heel. And as you said, you know, ego's a big part of that, how they look, how they're perceived. And if you can use that in some way to get out of the situation, then absolutely, I think you should go for it.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, otherwise it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars and many years down the road. I mean, people will say, oh, I just need a good lawyer. That's all I need. Well, a lot of people have good lawyers and they're still being led around by the nose, and it's still hundreds of thousands of dollars and many years later, and they haven't gotten anywhere. So it's because those lawyers don't understand narcissism. And they don't understand that they're actually part of the whole narcissist scheme to make this whole thing continue and make the other person suffer.
So bottom line is, if you're in something with a narcissist, whether it's a business, it's a relationship, a personal relationship, start developing your plan and strategy to get out. Because, you're not going to be the one to fix them. You're not going to change them unless they want to be helped, which, as you said, is very rare with narcissists, because they think that they've got it all figured out. Why would I need help? Right? So I think a key takeaway from this talk here is, you know, people that maybe have been making excuses to themselves that these people in their lives aren't narcissists, or maybe they didn't even understand what the exact definition of a narcissist was, which you so eloquently.
Well, and there's something called trauma bonding too, where you actually, it was like a guy, Robert Sapolsky, who was a psychologist out of Stanford, who did a study on monkeys, where if monkeys were given a reward every single time they did something good, the dopamine levels in their brain didn't do anything. But if they got rewards intermittently and they didn't know when they were going to get it, just the anticipation that they might get a reward caused the dopamine levels in their brain to release to the level of cocaine. And so you actually become addicted to this need for their approval or whatever, because of the love bombing to value dynamic. You know, it's love bomb to value, and you don't know when you're going to get it. And so there's this trauma bonding that people actually become addicted to, and it's very, very hard to get past that. And they've beaten you down so much. Sometimes people feel so powerless and so paralyzed. They feel like they've been told by the narcissist, you'll never get anything, I'll always win. And they believe that that's what it's going to be.
God, yeah. So thank you for, yes, that's really, really good. And there's two women here. First of all, Wild Child, DC, thank you for, you've been clearly, and Robin, okay, you guys clearly can really, I see you're both, you know, commenting quite a bit and can relate to, you know, being in a relationship with a narcissist. It sounds like you both went through either divorces or separations. Is that right? So it looks like Wild Child, yeah, it sounds like you had a real fun time in court. And you had one piece of advice just to let people, which I thought was interesting. You can order a psychological, like in court, psychological evaluation.
Yeah. You can get psych evals. They're much more easy to get if you put it in terms of best interest of the children. So I would say they're much easier to get under the umbrella of a custody evaluation.
Okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, you know, that's, you know, a lot of times, again, I just want to reemphasize, just if you think you're in one, you know, do a little bit more research, go to Rebecca's website, you know, understand exactly what it is a narcissist is, and figure out if you're, like I said, whether it's a business relationship, a personal relationship, and you want to get the heck out of there ASAP.
Yeah. And I do have a free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet for your viewers. They can just go to winmynegotiation.com to grab it.
Awesome.
So winmynegotiation.com. It's an ebook. Basically, it's 15 pages. And yeah, you would definitely want to check that out. And check out my YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/Rebecca Zung.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca,
Thank you
for
so
being
much
on the
for
show.
having me.
This was really neat. I knew it was going to be a good one. We went from Tay to some really this is some serious stuff here. And we've all come across narcissists in our life, and hopefully anybody that watches this can now really, like we were saying earlier, I think the key is to be aware of what they are, how to look out for them, and just avoid. And if you do have to engage, or if just remember to control those emotions and do not let them get your goat. Don't let them push your buttons, because that's exactly what they want.
Yeah, like the never let them see you sweat thing is.
And then I loved that ethically manipulating the manipulator too. Let's not forget
Yeah,
about that.
and I do want to say, just for people who are watching and who've been victims, remember that they don't attach themselves to you because you had no value. They actually attach themselves to you because you have so much value. They want to suck that value from you.
That's really important to say, because I guarantee you a lot of the people that are in relationships with narcissists feel they have no value, because that's what the narcissists make them, what's what they do. It's their thing. And so you got to remember, right, the reason they're with you is because you have so much value. Love that. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Again, this has been great. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And thank you again, Wild Child and Kay, for opening up and sharing with us. And hopefully other people got stuff out of this. We'll be cutting this up. We'll be putting little segments on 5 Core Life. And then you can also always get the full podcast on 5 Core Life in the App Store. And I know, Rebecca, you also have a podcast, and you've got your YouTube channel that sounds like you direct people.
I'm getting ready to interview you.
I know. I love it. I can't wait. So, okay, guys. Thanks again. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for today's episode of the 5 Core Life podcast with Will Moore, founder of More Momentum. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have not already, please make sure to subscribe and follow the podcast wherever you are listening or watching. This so that you get notified when new episodes air every week. And if you've not joined the 5 Core Life Facebook group, I encourage you to join that and see what all of the fuss is about. There's some awesome content designed to get your momentum going, including a monthly giveaway to win a complimentary coaching call with the Will Moore. The Facebook group is currently the only place to get Will's dedicated attention on your 5 Core journey. If you're feeling stuck or just want someone to cheer you on, then that is the place you need to be. There's nothing like a community of people on the same journey to get you fired up, kicking butt, and taking names. So come join us.
Get moving. Gain momentum. Join the movement. Join Emmett by going to moremomentum.com to take a free life evaluator quiz on where you currently stand in each of your 5 cores.